Imagine standing at a crossroads where one path promises $500,000 but carries the shadow of death, while the other offers safety and the continuation of everything you know. The first path glitters with promise. Houses, debt cleared, family secure, dreams suddenly attainable. But lurking beneath that shimmer is the one reality you cannot undo. Your life is finite, and once it ends, no amount of money can bring it back. This stark contrast forms the heart of the question, how much is a human life truly worth? The honest answer, comfortable as it may be, is that it far surpasses any financial figure, even one as eye-catching as 500,000. Money is inherently replaceable. You can lose it and earn it again, invest it and grow it, spend it and replenish it. Life, on the other hand, is non-renewable. The one asset you possess that is both irreplaceable and non-transferable. When someone trades risk of death for a sum of money, they are essentially wagering their only ticket to everything else: relationships, ambitions, memories, experiences, the ability to enjoy whatever the money might buy. If you are not alive to experience the wealth, the transaction collapses into nothing. This isn't just a philosophical stance, a practical reality that underscores why life insurance policies value people at far more than 500,000 and why courts award multi-million-dollar settlements for wrongful death cases. Worth considering is the illusion of immediate gain. Humans are wired to be dazzled by large numbers, especially when we're under pressure or facing hardship. In those moments, 500,000 feels like a lifeline, a chance to break free from debt, provide for children, to finally live without worry. But this is a cognitive trap. Money promises a future. Risk of death threatens to erase that future entirely. Even if the chance of death seems small, the cost is infinite, because you lose everything you are and everything you could become. It's like gambling with a one-of-a-kind painting. If you win, gain cash. If you lose, the painting is destroyed forever. Would any rational person make that bet, no matter how attractive the payout? There is also a psychological dimension often overlooked. The very act of contemplating a life or death gamble for money can shift your relationship with yourself. People who survive risky endeavors for cash sometimes report lingering guilt, anxiety, or a diminished sense of self-worth, as if they've put a price tag on their own existence. The intangible cost, mental health, trust from loved ones, personal integrity, can erode whatever financial benefit is gained. You can rebuild a bank account. It's far harder to rebuild a shaken identity or a fractured family dynamic. This leads to another underappreciated point. Without life is wealth without meaning. The richest experiences, holding your child's hand, seeing a sunrise, laughing with friends, are free but require you to be alive. If risking death removes your chance to experience them, the 500,000 becomes irrelevant. The most powerful hook here is that the very things people hope to secure with money, time with loved ones, freedom, security, are already compromised the moment they stake their life on a dangerous gamble. Finally, of life as priceless is not just sentimentality, it is a recognition of scarcity. Economics teaches that scarcity increases value. Your life is the scarcest resource you will ever own. 1 unit, non-renewable, no substitutes. That makes it the most valuable asset by any rational metric. Trading it, or even seriously risking it, for a sum of money is like exchanging a diamond for a glass bead. The glitter may look similar for a moment, but the intrinsic value is incomparable. When you understand life this way, question, would you risk dying for 500,000, stops feeling like a tempting offer and starts sounding like an absurd bargain you could never accept. Picture this scenario. Someone offers you 500,000 to complete a task, but there's a catch. You might die in the process. The natural follow-up question is not simply yes or no, but rather, what are the odds? Risk is rarely absolute. The percentage of danger becomes the central factor in decision-making. If there were a 50-50 chance of survival, the gamble feels reckless, like flipping a coin where one side brings unimaginable wealth and the other brings permanent loss. If the chance of dying were 1 in 1,000, may start to sound less like a suicide pact and more like a daring gamble. The human mind, however, is notoriously bad at grasping probability. That is where the danger of temptation begins. The hook lies in this paradox. We underestimate small risks and overestimate large ones. For example, someone may feel comfortable driving a car every day despite the very real chance of a fatal accident, yet they would hesitate to participate in a single event with a known 1% risk of death. The context and presentation of numbers matter more than the math itself. A risk that looks negligible in everyday life can feel unbearable when framed in stark terms, while the same risk cloaked in routine often feels acceptable. This means that when offered 500,000 for a life-threatening task, the perception of the percentage is often more powerful than the actual probability. When evaluating risk, the key consideration is not just the number itself but the scale of the consequences. A 1-cent chance of losing money is acceptable, but a 1-cent chance of losing your life is catastrophic. Statistically, if 100 people took the same deal at that risk level, one would die. Would you be comfortable being that one person? The cold reality is that percentages translate into human outcomes. They are not abstract. They represent lives ended, families devastated, and futures erased. That is what makes a risk percentage such a critical lens. Another hook is the seductive illusion of control. People often believe they can beat the odds through skill, preparation, or sheer determination. If told there is a 20% chance of dying, some may convince themselves that with focus and courage they can land safely in the other 80%. This is where probability plays tricks. Unlike a game where talent influences the outcome, some risks are purely statistical. Death does not negotiate. The risk is truly random. No amount of confidence can bend the odds in your favor. Believing otherwise is a dangerous psychological trap, one that transforms a financial opportunity into a fatal miscalculation. Risk percentages also carry emotional weight. Imagine a scenario where you are told there is a 90% chance of survival for the 500,000 task. At first glance, that seems favorable. 9 chances out of 10 you walk away rich and alive. But linger on the other side of that equation. 1 in 10 still dies. 10 people took the deal, 1 would never return. Suddenly, the odds do not seem so kind. The challenge here is that human beings often interpret high percentages as guarantees. 90% feels safe because it sounds close to certainty, life or death stakes. Even a sliver of risk becomes enormous. The haunting question becomes, what percentage of risk would you personally accept for 500,000? For some, even a 1 in a million chance is unacceptable because life is priceless. For others in desperate circumstances, they might accept 1 in 10 if it means leaving their family financially secure. The percentage does not only measure danger, it measures values, priorities, and desperation. It reflects how much someone is willing to gamble on the unknown. Ultimately, risk percentage matters because it transforms an abstract moral question into a tangible decision point. Without it, the choice feels black and white. With it, the choice becomes a scale where every number carries its own psychological weight. A 50% chance of death makes the offer laughable, 1 cent chance makes it a dilemma, and a 0.01% chance makes it eerily tempting. But no matter where the line is drawn, the harsh truth remains that every percentage greater than 0 means someone will pay the ultimate price. You could be the one to draw that card. T first glance, the decision to risk your life for 500,000 can seem like a matter of mathematics. Probability of dying is low enough, then the expected value of the gamble appears worthwhile. For instance, there is a 1% chance of death and a 99% chance of receiving the money. The expected return looks enormous, nearly $500,000 for an action that seems almost certain to succeed. This kind of calculation is seductive because it dresses a deeply human question in the clothing of cold logic. The hook is that numbers give the illusion of control, but the flaw lies in treating death as just another cost to be averaged out. Expected value works well in casinos, stock markets, and investment strategies because money lost can be regained, replaced, or at least measured in concrete terms. The same cannot be said about human life. When you factor in the possibility of death, the equation breaks down because the loss is absolute and irreversible. Unlike financial setbacks, you cannot rebuild, reinvest, or recover after you are gone. By using expected value as a decision tool in this scenario, you treat an infinite cost as if it were finite, makes the logic fatally misleading. The human mind, however, loves shortcuts. People cling to numbers because they feel objective. Objectivity feels safe. Yet what the numbers obscure is the catastrophic reality behind them. A 1% chance of death does not mean you personally get to enjoy the 99%. It means that if 100 people take the gamble, one of them never walks away. If you are the one, the expected value collapses into meaninglessness. From your perspective, was not a lucrative choice at all. It was the last choice you ever made. The math cannot console your family or replace the decades of experiences you forfeited. Another hook comes from comparing this reasoning to lottery tickets. A lottery ticket has a tiny expected value, far less than the cost of the ticket itself, yet millions play because of the dream attached to winning. In this case, the logic is reversed. The expected value may appear high, the dream attached to losing, the dream of your life ending abruptly, is far too steep. No jackpot can justify a gamble where the downside is everything you are and everything you could ever be. This is why even seemingly favorable odds become a trap when dressed in expected value calculations. Consider also the emotional distortion that arises from expected value thinking. Numbers on a page strip away the human element. They ignore the fear you would feel staring down death, the hesitation in your heartbeat, the trembling in your hands. They ignore the tears of your family should the gamble fail. Expected value reduces existence to an abstract currency, erasing the richness of human experience in favor of an equation. That erasure is where the danger lies. You stop thinking about yourself as a living, breathing person, and start treating your life like chips on a poker table. The irony is that expected value, the very tool designed to bring rational clarity, often introduces irrational confidence. People may look at a high expected payout and convince themselves the decision is sound, forgetting that the calculation hides an infinite downside. It whispers, "You are playing the odds," when the truth is, you are playing with your only chance to live. Even if 99 others walk away wealthy, the single person who dies has disproved the idea that the gamble was rational from every angle that matters. The fatal flaw, then, mistaking money for meaning. Expected value can tell you how much money might flow from a risky decision, but it cannot capture the value of your own heartbeat, your relationships, or the time you will never get back if you lose. That's the hook that shatters the illusion. Numbers may tell you the gamble is profitable. They will never tell you the gamble is survivable. When faced with the proposition of risking your life for $500,000, the answer is rarely universal. What seems unthinkable for one person might feel almost reasonable for another, not because the risk itself changes, but because the circumstances surrounding their life shift the weight of the decision. The hook lies in this uncomfortable truth: desperation, responsibility, personal struggle can transform an impossible gamble into a tempting opportunity. Human beings do not make choices in a vacuum. They make them under the pressure of bills, debts, family needs, and dreams deferred. For someone financially stable, with a steady income, a safe home, urgent crisis, the offer looks absurd. Why exchange even a sliver of life's potential for a lump sum that, while significant, does not alter the fact that they already live comfortably? To such a person, the gamble feels reckless, almost insulting, because it puts a monetary figure on something they already value beyond measure. Their circumstances protect them from even considering it seriously. But the story changes dramatically when you shift the lens to someone living on the edge. Imagine a parent drowning in debt, unable to feed their children or pay for life-saving medical care. To them, a $500,000 is not just money, it is freedom, survival, and a future. Context: the offer transforms from reckless to potentially noble, even self-sacrificial. Risking death for financial security might feel less like greed and more like an act of love, a way to provide for their family in ways that ordinary work could never achieve. The hook here is that the same gamble, through different life circumstances, can look either like foolishness or heroism. Circumstances also influence how people measure risk itself. Someone young, with decades of life ahead, may balk at the idea of trading time for money because their future holds endless possibilities. But someone older, facing terminal illness or carrying regrets, might perceive their remaining years differently. For them, the calculation shifts. They may decide that risking what little time remains for a financial windfall that benefits loved ones is a meaningful trade. What looks irrational from the outside may feel like clarity from within. Personal context is the hidden variable that changes the equation. Another layer comes from cultural and social pressures. In societies where success is measured by wealth and status, a lure of $500,000 can feel amplified. People may feel compelled to take risks not only for survival but for dignity, reputation, or pride. In contrast, cultures that emphasize community and long-term well-being may see the same gamble as reckless abandonment of responsibilities. Is that society itself whispers in the background of every decision, shaping what feels acceptable or absurd. Emotional state also matters. Someone in despair may value their own life less and therefore be willing to gamble it for money, believing they have little to lose. Conversely, someone deeply connected to their family and dreams may cling to life more fiercely, rejecting even the hint of unnecessary risk. The same offer can pass through two minds and emerge with opposite conclusions, not because of the offer itself, but because of the weight of what each person carries. This reveals the hidden complexity behind the question. When we ask whether someone would risk dying for $500,000, we are not just asking about their courage or greed. We are asking about their story, their burdens, and their sense of what matters most. The decision is less about the money or the math than about the circumstances shaping their values at that exact moment. A mirror that reflects desperation, hope, fear, and responsibility all at once. That is why personal context is the most powerful force in transforming an abstract gamble into a deeply human dilemma. When the question arises, would you risk dying for 500 azozozo? It is easy to imagine it as an individual decision. The focus often narrows to what you stand to gain or lose, as if the consequences end with you. But life does not exist in isolation. Every person is a thread in a larger fabric, and pulling that thread can unravel the lives of those closest to you. The hook here is that while the gamble feels like a solitary choice, its true cost is measured in the lives of loved ones who must carry the outcome long after you are gone. For a parent, the decision reverberates through their children. A child who loses a mother or father does not just lose financial support, they lose guidance, protection, irreplaceable sense of safety that comes from having a parent's presence. The 500,000 might cover school fees, clothes, or a house, but it will never replace bedtime stories, encouragement at milestones, or the comfort of being loved unconditionally. The absence echoes louder than the money ever could. A child does not grow up thinking, "At least we got the payout." They grow up thinking, "Why did I have to lose them at all?" Partners and spouses face a different kind of devastation. The sudden loss of a loved one brings not just grief, but also the crushing weight of loneliness. The 500,000 may ease the burden of bills, it cannot fill the silence in the house, the empty chair at dinner, or the unspoken conversations left hanging in time. Money cannot laugh with you, argue with you, or grow old beside you. When the gamble is framed this way, the temptation of wealth becomes hollow compared to the profound cost borne by those left behind. Parents losing a child face perhaps the sharpest pain. No amount of money can compensate for watching the life you nurtured be cut short. For them, the 500,000 might even feel like an insult, as though placing a financial tag on something that should have been priceless. The long-term impact here is not measured in dollars, but in grief that never fades. If fed, their days are marked not by security, but by the haunting thought of what could have been if the gamble had never been taken. There is also the ripple effect through friendships and communities. Your absence leaves gaps in routines, traditions, and shared experiences. Friends lose the laughter you brought, colleagues lose your contribution, and communities lose the small but vital ways you shaped them. Every life has a radius of influence far larger than most people realize. To risk it for 500,000 is not just to gamble with your own existence, but with the lives of everyone within that radius. The hook that deepens the dilemma is this: many people justify the gamble by believing they are doing it for their loved ones. A father may think of securing his family's future, a spouse may imagine paying off the mortgage, or a sibling may dream of lifting their family out of poverty. But what feels like a gift can become a wound. Loved ones may end up resenting the money because it reminds them daily of what was lost. The house bought with the payout is haunted by the absence of the person who was supposed to live there. The very act intended as sacrifice might instead be remembered as abandonment. Over time, money fades into the background. It is spent, invested, divided, or lost, while the memory of a person remains etched in hearts forever. The bank account eventually empties, but the grief continues. This contrast exposes the illusion that money can secure lasting comfort. What truly lasts is love, presence, shared experiences, things no payout can replicate. So when the offer of 500,000 in exchange for risk of death is placed on the table, long-term impact on loved ones reframes the decision. It is not only about what you might gain, but about what they will lose, not for a year or a decade, but for the rest of their lives. That reality makes the gamble far heavier than it first appears. When the idea of risking your life for 500 zloty is presented, most people think about the moment of risk itself, the coin flip between survival and death. What often goes unnoticed is the weight carried before, during, and after the decision, a burden that seeps into the mind and reshapes the way you live. The hook is that even if you survive and claim the reward, the psychological toll may linger long after the money is spent, leaving scars more lasting than the financial benefit. The first toll comes with anticipation. The moment you agree to a gamble involving death, your mind becomes a battlefield. Anxiety begins to gnaw at every corner of your thoughts. Nights become restless as you replay possible outcomes, each heartbeat reminding you of the risk you chose to accept. Instead of envisioning the joy of spending $500,000, you might find yourself imagining your own funeral, the grief of your family, and the uncertainty of whether tomorrow will come. The money sits like a distant promise, while fear becomes a constant companion. Even if you convince yourself the risk is small, the knowledge that it exists alters how you move through life. Every action becomes charged with meaning. Every goodbye could be final, every decision might be your last. The tension erodes your sense of safety, turning normal experiences into reminders of the gamble you agreed to. This is the hidden cost, the inability to live freely, because the shadow of death is tied directly to your choice. Surviving the gamble does not erase the toll. In some cases, it amplifies it. The mind has a way of replaying near-death experiences, sometimes in the form of flashbacks or nightmares. You may relive the risk again and again, wondering why you survived while others in similar circumstances might not have. This survivor's guilt can sour the taste of victory. 500 zloty in your account may feel heavy, not like a reward, but like blood money earned at too great a cost. Instead of celebrating, you might find yourself haunted, unable to separate the money from the fear that bought it. There is also the subtle erosion of self-worth. By agreeing to risk your life for money, you place a price tag on your existence. Even if you rationalize it as a practical decision, a part of you knows you measured your own life in dollars and cents. That realization can shift how you see yourself, as though you reduced your identity and humanity to a financial transaction. Over time, this may manifest as regret, shame, or a diminished sense of value. The very reward you sought may serve as a reminder of the compromise you made with yourself. Another hook lies in the way such a gamble affects relationships. Loved ones may look at you differently, not only because you took the risk but because they now live with the knowledge that you were willing to leave them for money. Trust can be shaken, even if unspoken, as partners or children wrestle with the idea that wealth was weighed against their presence in your life. This strain does not vanish with survival. It lingers, adding quiet tension to bonds that were once unquestioned. Finally, the way money interacts with memory. At first, the 500 zloty seems transformative, a chance to create stability and joy. But over time, the memory of how it was earned may cling like a shadow. Every purchase, every investment, every indulgence may remind you of the gamble. The money may buy comfort, but it cannot buy peace of mind. That is the paradox. What was supposed to provide security may instead introduce a new form of insecurity, one rooted in the memory of how close you came to losing everything. The psychological toll reveals that even if you walk away alive and wealthy, you do not walk away unchanged. The experience embeds itself in your mind, reshaping the way you think about yourself, your loved ones, and your future. In the end, the greatest weight is not the risk of dying, but the burden of living with the knowledge of what you are willing to risk for money.